There's a way, where there's a will, there is a way, where there's a will. We don't want to go to war today, but the Lord of the Light has opened a day. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Hello, my friends. I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And I had a comment in one of my other videos yesterday from one of you fine folks who mentioned was Alpha Strike anything like Battleforce? Now, I have to acknowledge that I personally have not seen Alpha Strike. I don't own it yet. If I'm going to, we're back to, once again, I just can't afford to drop $100 every month on stuff for Battletech. If I wanted to, I couldn't do it right now. I'm not sure if I ever could, to be honest. Not anymore. True. So I from what I could read up on it, and I was kind of limited in what I could find on it in any great depth, is that it is a new incarnation of the Battleforce concept, and so this was a game system that I was extremely fond of when it came out. It reminisced of many of the tabletop war games that I'd love to play, and it takes the tabletop mech or BattleTech tabletop to the next level. And what I mean by the next level, I mean is unit size. We're using things that are now lance and greater scale. And I acknowledge the fact that this is City Tech and not Battleforce. The original box is long gone, and I don't have it anymore. So I used boxes to store material in them. And so when we look at what we have a whole pile of clips for bases to hold the units, and the average unit. So if you look at it, your marker, it shows 5 steps, and the red being overburn, which if you use overburn allows you to gain, in this case it allows you to gain an extra 4 points of movement for your light mech lance, but you suffer a damage reduction. So by doing that, you're going to drop from blue to green. So you burned up a machine in the process of doing it. It's not something I did very often. So blue is no damage, green is 1 damage, yellow is 3 damage, and 0, 1, 2, 3. So when we got down to basically one mech left, so once you took one more point of damage or one more round of damage, then the unit ceases to exist altogether. And so you have range, R for range, and they're all pretty consistent. 1 hex. Keep in mind that the hex ratio for Battleforce was much greater. So this represents a unit of 4 machines of mechs. So ideally, the scale is going to be much greater. I believe it's several hundred. It's 100 square meters or something like that. What the scale is, and I'm not going to go run it down through here and try to hunt it down and waste time. But I know that it's much greater. So ideally, you're looking at several hundred meters between hexes. So this unit's here, and this unit's here. They're literally at one range. They're point blank, and I think I'm using that wrong. No, I got something wrong. R for recon difference. I don't know. They mean something different. Okay, the M is for movement. Range is over here. So range combat, close combat, and damage points. So by the time you got down to one point, you're going to lose. The 4th point means nothing. Your whole unit's completely gone. And then we had these chips, and there's green, there's regular, there's veteran, and elite. So in this case, I would stick it here or over here. I'm not sure that it really matters. I think usually it was on this side. So now it says this is a green lance of light mechs. They're green. And then we're going to have the step damage, of course, and step 0, the blue, being 0 damage. So we'll put that on that side. So that way we know this unit is using this line of numbers. So if we're using 0, we get our ranged combat is 4 hexes. close, or no, our damage for 4 is for our closest 5. That is range. Right. And then damage is 3, of course. So we said, well, generally a movement of 8, 12 if we want to do an overburn and take appropriate damage. And then there are some additional pieces that can go in here. I don't know if I can find them without digging through a gob of stuff. As you can see, I made a bunch of extra ones because I like to field large groups and large units. I like the game so much that I really liked. I had no problem putting a battalion, supported battalion on a field, and and run that kind of that big a scale combat, and because the options are much greater for a grander scheme of things, if you wish or will. So you use damage. This here would be representing some Mechs hand. It represents that there's battlefield salvage on there. Generally speaking, if we lost an entire unit, we would flip the unit over and put that there to represent that there was multiple salvage units or multiple things to be salvaged, or salvage points that were there. And then of course there was a slew of, this is Federated Sun symbol. So ideally you could choose to put this on the back in some way, so your opposing side can look at you and go, ah, so you're representing the Federated Sun. And all the major factions were covered at some point or another in here. There's way too many chits, right? Yeah, right. Well, there's some for ECM and EM and extra points of damage. There's one that represents you having a 5th mech or a 5th tank in the unit, so on and so forth. You also had blinds, and blinds were, so you would take the other side here, your opponent would be able to know right off the bat that he's facing a mech, and he just didn't know what type it was until he got within visual range of the unit. And ideally, so you would have this piece here, a blind marker piece in here, that's going to cover up the type. And so it wasn't until you got engagement range to discover whether what you're facing, and it could make a huge difference if you're running up a light set of light lance to go up after an opposing unit, and it turns out that unit's an assault lance. You just probably lost your whole unit. Your whole lance just went to the dogs, so to speak. So I have tried hard to keep all these things bagged up so I don't lose them, because there's so many tiny pieces. And the fact I didn't lose that many, yeah, here we go. That's what I've been trying to find. So for example, here's one for a jump capable lance. So ideally, when you're going to field a lance of mechs, the mechs, all 4 mechs need to be jump capable. Otherwise, it's not going to be viable. So you would have the jump shit on the back, perhaps, to show that this lance is jump capable. And then we have things like here's recon +2 ESR, firepower +2, so perhaps we much more robust attack system, better weapon systems or something like that. We got for aerospace and airplanes, we got bombs. There's a bomb chit, so that one's 10 points of bombs that your machine might be able to land out. And right, so extra mech, here's one that says extra mech on it, so you get the idea how these things are applied to the unit. Extra tank, whatever. I might have a lance of 5. That gives me one more additional step of damage, potential for taking damage. And of course, these are the generics that came with the game. And there was a supplement. There was a reinforcements box for Battleforce that came out. So I was able, this is why I got so many of these. But what I'm not showing is, and I looked for it, and I know I have it. For the love of Pete, I do know I have it. I just don't know where I stuck them. But I have a whole nother box full of these things that are full of my own created versions. This is something I got to be pretty good at. So it's not rocket science. You just get some cardstock and you take one of these that aren't, and mine are of course all stapled now, but if you took one that was not stapled, you'd unfold the pattern and you'd trace the pattern, and I had whole sheets of cardstock where I made hundreds of these things and cut out the pieces and hand wrote everything, and then I took color pencils or markers and made my colorations on them. So then I would create things like these. So this is this is one of the sort of light units. I can't tell you off the top of my head which one that's supposed to be. But this is for the Draconis Combine, and I just never got around to putting it together yet. So there is the mech, this aerospace or helos, mechs, helos, wheeled reconnaissance, recovery, maintenance vehicles, drop ship there. Here are some drop ships: Union, Fury, Leopard. I actually put them down. So this is the first sort of light. So here's my pieces. I don't know if you can see, you can't really see them very well, but you can see that they're on stickers. And so here would be the Regimental Command Lance, 2nd Regular Transportation Company, Regimental Security Lance, 3rd Regimental Transport Company, because I wanted these things to be fully outfitted out as the entire regiment. So here is 1st Sort of Light, Support Battalion Command Lance, 1st Sort of Light, 2nd Artillery Battery, long comms, you know, 1st Sort of Light, Support Battalion, Reconnaissance Company Command, hover units, you know, so right on down all through the makeup. So here is 1st Sort of Light, 4th Battalion, 2nd Company, Support Lance, 1st Sort of Light, Leopard Dropship, 1st Sort of Light, 4th Battalion, 3rd Company, Command Lance. All right, and then more of the symbology. And then it's just the Benjamin Regulars. I think it's the Benjamin Regulars unit. No, 6 Donegal Guards. So this is a Lyran unit here, sitting behind this. And I did many regiments of various houses, and the same thing, right, on these. So that's those, and then we got, what is this? I'm not sure what unit that is, top of my head. 2nd Atrian Hussars, however you want to pronounce it. 15th Lyran Guards. These look like some free world unit here. Yeah, Falcon Guards. You know, this is Jade Falcons. So I didn't have the updated clan. There was a clan revision for Battleforce. I know it was Battleforce 2, 2nd edition, whatever, but it adjusted things to accommodate the arrival of the clans. And I didn't buy the rule set, but I knew I was going to do it anyway. And all I had to figure was we were just going to basically add another step of damage. So, and consider there being, you know, in the case of here, there's 4. A clan unit, since there's 5 mechs to a star, is going to have 5 steps. So I added an extra step, and then I just increased their damage from range potential proportionately. So, you know, they're going to have additional damage and additional combat abilities and things like this, and made them much more tougher of an opponent because they're clan units, and that's exactly what they're going to be. And then, of course, we have a slew of markers here to represent things like buildings and bunkers and houses and so on and so forth like this. So we got, you know, there is a light industrial building, an office complex, and if you look at the back of these things, they're just rubble. So you reduce the damage points in that building and turn it into a rubble. And so here is a house basically a house and a yard, you know, in any commercial or any residential neighborhood, and the damage left over. So here's a medium industrial building, so on and so forth. So, you know, the idea being is that you would pepper your field with these things. You know, so I would put one down like that, and I have my lances, my two lances defending the heavy building kind of thing. So, you know, all right. Put all those things there in the box so they don't disappear. Back into the city tech box. And so we look at Battleforce small unit actions in the 31st century. You can see this duck has seen some wear. It's got some water damage, a little bit of mold damage going on from back in the day. And secession wars of the 31st century are like no other in recorded history. Giant BattleMechs march across water-rich worlds of former Star League, providing their dominance against all their machines. 100 years fighting a range terror, blah, blah, blah. Various previous massive products such as BattleTech, CityTech, Aerotech simulate combat between individual units. The introduction of Battleforce players may now expand their games to include large-scale combat between companies, battalions, even full regiments. Battleforce also provided a detailed unit creation system allows players to create their own Battleforce lances and regiments. In addition, there are scenarios and campaign guidelines. One possible campaign might pit House Davion to Elite 7th Crucis Lancers against a mercenary unit Morris Bandits. Complete regimental rousters for these units are included. So what we have is one rule book, two 22-inch by 34-inch terrain map sheets. I have those map sheets. They're in the other room, and they're actually paper, and they look significantly different. And one of them has well, actually it looks like road network running across it. 64 counter bases, 200 unit counters and other special counters, one counter tray, and two 6-sided dice. And yeah, so you can see the map. It shows a little road network and stuff. And I've actually used it. I think it's out in our living room right now, but I have used, might be one of them over here somewhere, because I've used it as a backdrop on some earlier videos. And terrain types, rough, heavy building types, playing pieces. Each Battleforce counter represents 4 mechs or vehicles, a platoon of infantry, or 2 aerospace fighters. One of the special features of these counters is their design. It's quite different from their more typical half-inch cardboard squares. Because of their odd shape, the Battleforce pieces are able to serve as blinds to keep players from discovering too much about the strengths and weaknesses of their opponents. At first, all one player knows about the other unit's ground unit. Others' ground units is their class, that is, whether it's a mech, vehicle, air unit, and so on. During the game, however, the player will be able to learn more about his opponent when the rules require that information blinds be moved from the counters. Assembling the counters. Battleforce counters are easily assembled, blah, 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 shows how to put them together. I end up stapling mine because they have a bad habit of flanging out. And I got fed up with it. So here we go. Counter values are, yeah, R is range. So the so that light mech unit only has 1 range. Heavy ones had 2 ranges. Range column. M column shows the movement allowance. RA is the ranged attack value. CA is the close attack value, and D, of course, is defensive value. Combat values vary. Various types of units, light, medium, heavy, and so on. These designations can also be deceptive at times, for combat values of even a single type of unit can vary dramatically. For example, compare heavy mech lances, etc., etc. So we got step damage. The unit takes damage, all game values except range will be affected. Battleforce damage is measured in steps. Step 0 through step 3. And it goes and explains those. Unit classes, light mechs, assault mechs, fire mechs, heavy mechs. Fire mechs are equipped with long-range missile capability, makes them important fire support units to any assault. They are often linked with an ESR-equipped light or a light mech that is functioning as a forward observer. Vehicles, infantry, things like artillery, special encounters, information blinds. Excuse me. Size of unit encounters, special information chips include the insert of the counter base. Still, other chips to be placed on the map sheet. Information blinds are counters used to hide a mech or vehicle's type, heavy, light, assault, and so on. So electronic sensors are able to detect it. Air units never use information blinds on their counters. Experience level chits are inserted into one of the information side pockets. Top of the experience level chit extends above the side wing of the unit, allowing the player to read the experience level on the unit. All Battleforce units must have an experience level, which is usually not revealed to the enemy player. And that's important because when you look at the things like range combat, close combat, the more experienced unit, they actually get pluses to those added to them, if I remember right. Damage step chips, variation chips. So things like referencing special adaptations and variations to standard unit counters, ranging from jump capability, extra firepower, or armor, or to special communications links and enhanced sensing devices. Bomb loads are also considered a variation. Variation chips are discussed at the end of the rules section. Board encounters, dice, game setup. So we got playing the game sequence of play, moving phase. It's nothing. It's the same as pretty much the exact same as playing any other tabletop war game. The BattleTech scenario rules for maneuver and sequence of play and firing and things like this. It's the same. It's just that in Battleforce, the average. So you have 4 different mechs making up your light lance, and each one may have a different weapon loadout. Well, they took them together and then averaged them out. So the maximum range based on the maximum range of weapons averaged and maximum damage averaged, things like this. So it's just a slightly different take on the same scenario. And the phases all pretty much are identical. Movement point, no stacking, road bonuses, jump capable, hovercraft, wheel track, battle special movement rules, overburn movement. Yeah, that's that one little side chip that gives you the little extra boost. Lances must be moved careful to avoid heat buildup caused by moving too fast or firing too long. Desperate individual lances will occasionally force machines beyond safe heat levels to achieve temporary gain of movement or firepower. This procedure is called overburn. During this movement phase, a phasing character may declare a particular vehicle or mech unit will overburn. Player must declare that before moving the unit. So in that case, that one light mech lance, its base movement is 8. In overburn, it's 12. So it could gain an extra 4 hexes of movement if you wanted to choose to do overburn. For example, the unit then must move 1 step level higher than its current rating for damage. So, for example, a unit with step 1 damage that is fighting at the green level may during overburn flight move at the blue full strength level for 1 turn during the phase. Okay, the penalty for overburn is severe. Each time a unit overburns, it automatically loses 1 step of damage at the end of its turn. Units that begin and end their overburn movement in water hex do not take step damage, however. So that's what made water, like in the game, very valuable. If you can move to quick enough, excuse me, damn it, and end up in a water hex, you wouldn't get the overburn penalty for damage. Overrun movement, dropping. It says mech units have the ability to drop on the battlefield from space. Attackers can easily turn the tide of any battle. It's dangerous, however, because dropping mechs are vulnerable to both ground fire and air units. Furthermore, there's a risk of rough leveling, which can cause additional damage. There's also such a thing as scatter. So you might be targeting a specific hex, and you fail to hit that particular roll, and then you toss a dice to see how far away and how far apart your units have dispersed. And that's by lance, not by individual machines. Landings, sighting phase, going into a little more detail, elevation dead zones, combat, line of sight, range, all basic stuff from BattleTech tabletop. It's nothing really changed other than scale, attacking, attack modifiers. Right, so yeah, any unexperienced jets. So a green unit operated with its combat range, its combat attack abilities and stuff with a -1. Regulars had 0. Veterans get a +1, and elite gets a +2. So it's, and then we have our combat results table, Terran modifier table, effects of fire, disruption effects, special combat rolls, building, close assault, overburn combat, mine attacks, hidden infantry, special units, air lances, movement, ESR detection, combat damage, drop ships, movement, artillery, using the variation chits. So we got recon +2, extra mech, jump, firepower, armor value, ECM, active electronic probe or AEP, creating lances and regiments, creating mech lances. So it runs you through 4 vehicles and mechs join together to find a single fighting unit that create a lance. The chapter includes a number of force able allow players to easily convert their custom lances to use Battleforce by adding together statistics for all machines in the unit and dividing them 4 to get the average. So the procedure is easy to determine the following steps: determine the defensive value, calculate range attack value, determine range rating, calculate close attack and overburn value, determine movement. So if I have a 4 light mechs, and they combine have 22, they're capable of doing 22 points of movement or damage, then I'm going to divide that by 4, round it down, and so I'm going to end up with a basic ranged attack range or 4 points, and possibly 5 points or 6 points for close attack. And determining defensive value, defensive armor, depending range attack value. Well, look, they're all pretty straightforward and basic. And some notes to make things a little simpler for me. Armor values. It's a cheat sheet so I can have it with me. Attack range. So I can keep flipping back and forth between pages when I was setting up stats for lances. Quick lance generation method. Regimental composition, designing a regiment. It's like here, during the first quarter of the 31st century, no regiment can boast uniformity. Each has to incorporate capture, damage, and variant units to fill out its lances. This makes for amazing diversity within individual regiments. The following advice both to generals and their battle computers, successor lords have nevertheless managed to end up with regiments whose firepower and numbers roughly equivalent strategically. Major difference among them is experience. Indeed, overall experience level of a regiment is often a deciding factor in its campaign. Experienced mech warriors get the benefits of extra training, better rations, and higher pay, and as was expected, more experienced mechs and more experienced pilots are assigned more powerful mechs. The green units get the weaker, older units, and so on and so forth. Right, and as well as addition to other stuff. Regimental composition, statistical data, experience levels, using purchase points, mech regimental breakdown, scenarios, how to set them up, how to run them, victory conditions, surprise encounter, the steel tip, the pounce, victory conditions. So here the pounce. Once an attacker penetrates his enemy's rear, the smaller attack mechs fan out, trying to surprise the enemy supply columns, prevent damaged lances from making it back to their regimental battle group. In this scenario, small attacking mech forces spotted a supply column, prepares to pounce. Lay it out. So what we got is 3 ordnance trucks, 3 coolant trucks, 2 mobile head cores, 3 medium wheel type 7s, 1 medium hover, 1 medium hover tuck. So we got quite a few units here, and you have basically a reinforced light company, 2 light mech lances at full strength, and a 1 medium mech lance. So victory conditions. Standard victory conditions. The attacker gains full points of destroying already damaged mechs. Furthermore, if the attacking mechs destroy a unit carrying a salvage encounter, 2 salvage encounters are placed on that hex. Any salvage encounters left on the map at the end of the game are worth 10 points each to the attacker. Any coolant truck, mobile HQ, or ordnance truck destroyed is worth 10 extra points in addition to its purchase cost. Remember to add 3 points to each ECM variation counter. Vendor's supply column wins 5 points for each unit, 10 points for each salvage counter that exits the north side of map sheet B. The game ends with the last supply column or escort unit exits the west side of the map sheet. The duty, special conditions, no profit in dying, blah, blah. So we're going to bring us up to campaign rules, creating battle groups. regimental battle group, strategic maps, campaign setup, sequence of play, contact, resolves battle, air damage lances, increased experience, computing points. All right, then we get the regimental rousters, the 7th Crucis Lancers, a little bit of their history, and a breakdown of all their units and all their support units that are attached to them. And then we got Morris Bandits, a mercenary regiment, and broke down on all of its supporting units and all of its mech lances and stuff. So, see, this is getting used to playing Battleforce and stuff. I really got to where I enjoyed this level of detail. So when we started getting things like these and they didn't include those, I was kind of getting bummed out a little bit about it. I mean, I still kind of grousing here and there, but that's Battleforce for you. And I really love playing this game. I think it's great. There's no, I mean, BattleTech's a good game too. I'm not knocking it. It's just this one took it to another level, and I really enjoyed that kind of level of stuff. Anyway, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.